conversations in the chat will not be considered formal comments. In addition to oral comments made today, the agency continues to accept written comments. Contact information for submitting comments in writing is displayed. All written comments must be received no later than August 5th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Comments received after that date will not be considered and will not be included in the record for this rulemaking. The departments will prepare a document listing all commenters and summarizing all comments, and this will be available along with the department's responses when the adopted rule is published. Responses will explain whether changes were made based on the comment. The final rule must be approved for form and legality by the Office of the Attorney General and adopted within 120 days from the comment deadline, no later than October 1st, 2021. Any changes made based on comments or recommendations by the Assistant Attorney General will be detailed in the summary of comments and response document. We can begin taking comments. Andy, will you please unmute the first speaker? And speaker, please remember to introduce yourself before making your statement. And Andy, can you also please begin the timer?
Okay, I'm going to unmute Andrew Cashman first. What happened to Andrew Cashman?
Can you hear me all right?
Oh, okay, there you are.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Andy Cashman. I'm a partner at Pretty Flaherty, and I'm here today on behalf of my client, Pearson Education, which provides support services to Maine Connections Academy. And I was asked to present their written comments that they filed previously. That's under the signature of the board president, Amy Linscott, and the school leader, Walter Wallace. We have really one small comment. I would just say we're neither for nor against this bill. This is just a technical suggestion, we believe a clarification. Under the exemption section of the proposed rule, under section 3A sub 5, the department has proposed having an exemption for students that are enrolled in a distance education program. Arguably, that could include those enrolled in a virtual public charter school, but we think that it's important to clarify that by inserting the following clause, including educational programs at a virtual public charter school. We believe that making this change would be internally and logically consistent with what the department has already proposed and would provide for fairness across all types of public schools here in Maine. Specifically, if the logical basis for which the department has proposed an exemption for those enrolled in a distance education program is that there's no harm potentially posed by those that are unvaccinated in terms of their ability to transmit.
I think a reminder would be good. I also asked that
in terms of being able to in terms of being able to transmit a disease because you're not physically located in proximity to one another. That logical consistency would apply as well to those involved in a virtual education public charter school. I would also say that it's logically consistent with the basis for this virtual hearing in that having us all spread out protects everybody from transmission, and that would apply as well to those involved in virtual education. The same protocols for state assessments and other mandated tasks would continue to apply, of course, to a virtual public charter school as well under the proposal that we've put forward. I would also just say quickly that LD 1082 was one of many bills considered this last legislative session that considered various exemptions to the immunization rules. And I would say that that was defeated. It did propose something similar to what we're stating here, but very importantly, the fundamental basis of this to say that those involved in a virtual public charter education are not providing a risk of transmission and disease was not substantively discussed by the legislature and would therefore not be a logical basis to reject this proposal. And in fact, if the department were to kind of consider that, then that the legislature does think that that would be a problem by voting down LD 1082, that would then not be a reason to do what the department has already suggested here in terms of allowing for a distance education program. So just in conclusion, we feel that this is providing for a logical consistency with what the department has already provided to make sure that it's clarified that those involved in a virtual public charter school education would also have qualify for this exemption. It would allow MCA to continue to meet students where they are and continue to provide education to those through that exemption. So I appreciate your time today. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, but otherwise I see my time has ended, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, the next person up will be Darcy Forrest.
Hi.
Darcy, before you start, may I just cut in for just a minute to remind people participating in this hearing that the chat feature is for registration to make your comments heard today only. Those written in the chats will not be considered in the written record and will not be reviewed. So if you are wanting to make a comment and provide your testimony, please do so by registering your name with Andy, or you can also provide some written comments submitted to me directly. Thanks. Darcy, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. All right. So my name is Darcy. I'm just a mom. I'm also an acupuncturist here in Maine. And I wanted to join this meeting because I have 2 young children. I feel scared for them in the sense that I, as a mom, am no longer to make healthy choices for my children and decide what is best for them. Children have a very, very extreme immunity to this COVID disease. And I feel like it's an infringement on my rights and on my children's bodies for people to insist that they get injected with an experimental medication that has not been safety tested at all. And for the state of Maine to consider forcing these jabs into our children is absolutely atrocious to the fact where I'm considering moving from this state. And I think what you're going to start seeing is a lot of parents starting to take their children out of school as to avoid having them placed under these conditions where they're forced into experimental drug trials. I feel saddened, really saddened by the fact that this is even a conversation that needs to be had. It's bad enough that children are being forced to undergo the 69 vaccinations that are mandated now by the time they're 18. But this is absolutely absurd, in my opinion. And I hope that we can use common sense and understanding that we as mothers and as parents, we know what's best for our children. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you, Darcy, for your comment. Next up, we are going to have Nancy Watson. Okay. I'm trying to unmute Nancy. Just hold on a moment, please. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, Nancy, you should be ready.
Thank you. When my school system in which I teach, SAD 1, sent a letter to all the students that to get updated on your vaccines, your shots, all 74 of them, in order to play sports this fall year, it's like, my son, well, guess I can't play sports. We are injecting our children with too many substances and toxins that their young bodies, their young growing bodies are not able to handle. This is not okay. We cannot give up our freedoms, and it has to be our choice. We are the parents raising our children. This is not safe. And we live in a free country. These are crimes against humanity and our children. And I am totally opposed to this state and government making all of these decisions. It is not okay. And I agree with the other people who have commented in the chat.
Experimental.
It is experimental. And my son, our children here are not to be experimented on. There are vaccine injuries happening all over the place. This is not okay. We need to choose for ourselves. And for our children. And for our children. These things need to be made more public before they go into law to inform people of what is happening. And just like the letter that was sent by SAD1 about the new law, well, it's not new law, it's proposed. It is not law yet.
Does that conclude your comment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up we have Ann Shores. I'm going to work to unmute your microphone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a therapist for my local school district, and I've been in the schools for 16 years, and my daughter is also a student there. And I agree with everything everyone is saying. This is literally keeping me up at night. We are vaccinated, but we just recently found out that some vaccines have caused some issues with my daughter, who also has celiac disease. I'm learning that I have some autoimmune diseases, and the flu shot has actually been making me sick for the past 10 years. We stopped the flu shot almost 2 years ago, and we're the healthiest we've ever been. And I'm really feeling like if people are worried and want their child to be inoculated, then please do. But don't force me or my child to do it. It's our body, our choice. Even if this gets approved by the FDA next week, this has not been tested long enough. We are not experimental people. We should be able to, choose what goes into our own body and not be used as guinea pigs. The government control has got to stop. We shouldn't be exempted or even have to prove exemption for this. It should be freedom of medical choice. I did submit a written comment, but I would love to read it again if I have time. We feel like you're trying to control our children and our children's health and our well-being without our knowing and without knowing the whole story of our situation. As I said, we've both discovered long-term side effects from the flu shot, and our doctors actually don't recommend the COVID vaccine for either one of us, but they do for other people, and that's okay. We should be, we're fully vaccinated, like I said, except for these two, and we shouldn't be forced to take these or be reprimanded for not taking these in order to attend or work in our public schools. It's government control over our bodies you know nothing about. You have no right to set rules across the board or mandate a doctor's note to do so, nor prevent others from following their religious beliefs. I just don't feel this is okay. I don't know how people sleep at night making these choices about people they don't know. I just don't feel it's okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I've had a few people ask that the public forum be open or that the chat room be made a public forum, and that's not the purpose of the chat. If you want to make a comment on a rulemaking, please send me a direct text and we will open the microphone for you to comment that way. You also have the ability to send in written comments. As Bridget said, you can send the comments to us. You could do that way, and Bridget will remind you how to do that soon.
Thank you, Andy, for that reminder. We just want to remind folks that similar to a public meeting, if we were holding this out in the open, that the side conversations just are not appropriate. So we're going to try and make this as formal and to the point as we can with today's hearings. And just to remind people again that this is also about the scope of the actual proposed changes. With the rulemaking, we are not able to change any statutes or the recent law changes, but this rule is just to implement those changes. So while we appreciate the comments, any suggested changes to the legislation would have to take place in a different forum. And this is strictly for the rulemaking that was proposed today, which again, just implements those changes that are now in law. Andy, I think we can go on with our next commenter.
Yes, so I have a request from Michaela. I have two Michaelas. There's a Michaela Gladu and just a Michaela. I'm not sure which one to unmute. Michaela, could you send me a quick chat to let me know which one you are? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, Michaela, you're good to go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I'm not very tech savvy, so forgive me. Yes, hi, thank you for holding this meeting. This is really important. I'd like to piggyback off Nancy and Darcy that parents do know best for their children. We should have this free choice, especially when it comes to an experimental drug that is not approved by the FDA, though might they try for this fall. I am concerned because I may need to look into homeschooling for my child if that be the case. Recently, there has been noted 45,000 deaths due to the vaccine. Pfizer and Moderna, I believe, by a CDC whistleblower. There have been several hundreds and thousands of cases where parents reports on their children hurt by the vax or killed by the vax. Those reports are being suppressed, as we know, by big tech. That's really concerning. So no, I don't think it's a good idea to mandate this vaccine, any of them. I mean, animal trials were ended because the animals, the ferrets they were using were dying. I strongly disagree with implementing these changes. Again, I think it is that parents should have this control over their children. They know best, not the government. I feel that this would also violate a Nuremberg Code, which is pretty scary that we're even talking about that now. But I guess that's all I really have to say, just kind of piggybacking on the other parents. It is our choice for our children, and it shouldn't be the government's. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Michaela.
Thank you.
What's going on? I can't hear.
I don't have anybody else who sent me a chat who would like to comment. If you would like to comment on this rulemaking, please send me a direct chat and we can get you on the mic. Thank you. Okay, we have a request to comment from Elizabeth Shardlow. I'm going to unmute your mic and you should be ready to go any moment as soon as you unmute your mic. There you go. Okay, you're good to go, Elizabeth. We can hear you.
Okay, great, thanks. So I have just a couple points. First of all, the law that was enacted reads that students with an IEP and an exemption can continue in school under that exemption, not under that IEP. And in the language of the proposed rules, it allows students to continue once they, if they lose their IEP, so long as they're still under FAPE. But that would seem to contradict the state statute as it was enacted, and it would effectively punish students who work hard to overcome their disabilities by removing them from school if they do lose their IEP. Secondly, I don't believe the 90-day grace period is sufficient to fully vaccinate a child who has had no previous vaccines. And an example of that is the pre-K schedule that requires 4 doses of DTaP for a 4-year-old. I don't believe those 4 doses can be accomplished in a 90-day period. So I would ask that the DOE consider expanding that. And one way that that could be accomplished is that in the current proposed rules, it reads that DHHS will make a determination about a catch-up schedule that's appropriate for the students. And I'd be curious who at DHHS would be making this determination, and request that the DOE leave that up to the child's medical provider, so long as they provide documentation that the child is on a catch-up schedule. In the old rules, it allowed the parents to allow the school nurse to vaccinate the student And if a student is on a schedule with their provider, whatever type of provider that might be, recognizing that there are providers who are vaccinating children and have always been vaccinating children that are not under the, they're not an MD or a DO or advanced practice, nurse practitioner and so forth. But if a provider who has a child on a set schedule to catch them up provides that documentation to the school, I would request that the DOE allow some sort of provision to allow that student to continue, knowing that the parent is doing their due diligence to get their student caught up. And it would not be inconsistent with the various language that's in the proposed rules. It would just sort of clarify and streamline that process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, for your comment. Next up, we have Jen Terrio. Jen, I'm going to ask to unmute your mic.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, we can hear you. You're good to go.
I just want to here where we work, we're working with a lot of parents to catch up their vaccinations before school start. And obviously we do follow the CDC recommendations with the catch up. If you look at the pre-K list, I know sometimes for some parents, it can be alarming that they look at 14 to 16 doses, over a 6-month time. But other than the pre-K list, we don't notice, unless you really want to rummage through the CDC, we don't see catch-up lists for different ages. So a 10-year-old who hasn't been vaccinated, as many of you know, the list is going to be different than the pre-K list. I don't know if it would be helpful if there were more catch-up guidance for some other ages like 7 to 10 or 10 to 18, so that it helps parents sort out and understand what exactly their child needs for that catch-up schedule, instead of that predetermined pre-K list, which can be different for other ages. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. At the moment, we don't have anybody else who requested to make a comment. If you would like to make a public comment on this rulemaking, please send me a direct chat and we can get you up next. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. We'll just remain on and see if anyone is going to register for some more chatting.
Okay, once again, just send me a chat if you want to comment. So far, we have nobody else who's requested to comment.
We are just making sure that everyone who wants to comment has registered with Andy if they're choosing to do so. And also just remind people that you can submit written comments. I'll be sharing that address. It's also displaying here on the screen. And as a reminder to folks that the details of the changes proposed can be found on the Maine CDC website and also was issued in the notice of rulemaking. So we have participants who are raising their hand, and we're just asking for clarification if that's because you want to make some comments. So again, if you could register with Andy using the chat to let us know if you want to make provide your testimony today, we appreciate it.
Okay, we did receive a request to comment from Ellen Young Stanley. Ellen, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic and then you can begin your comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My comment is really simple today. I am a educator and counselor, and I am hearing from an increasing number of parents whose children have IEPs, and doctors are not really understanding their role for children who have IEPs. And so it really is, you know, I guess the Maine Medical Association's responsibility to educate their doctors about what their role is when a child with an IEP comes and needs something signed so that they can continue to attend school. This is becoming an increasing problem, and I'm hearing from more and more parents. So I just wanted to throw that out to you all so that the kids that can be excluded from this law and can go to school and don't have to be immunized because they have IEPs can actually do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a request from Becky Grant Wyden to provide a public comment. Okay, Becky, I'm going to ask to unmute your microphone. You should be good to go.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
But I did want to reiterate what Ellen just said about the IEP issue. I think it's important to make crystal clear within the rules the difference between a medical exemption that a doctor would sign and the education sign-off that a doctor would also sign for the IEP students. So what I would propose, while I understand the CDC cannot put anything more specific about medical exemptions in the rules, I think it would be possible to restate what the statute says within the information regarding the medical exemptions so that it's all in one package within the rules and doctors can look at the rules and see that information. And as well, I feel it's the responsibility of the Maine CDC to provide that education to the doctors and put that information on their website and make it with rules that they must provide that sort of education, as well as provide a standardized medical exemption form that doctors can use and a standardized physician education form for the IEP students that are excluded from the law. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky, for your comment. Is there anybody else who would like to testify? So far, we have open space for people to testify if they would like to. Once again, to testify, please send a direct chat to Andy Hardy and you can testify on this rulemaking. Thank you. Okay, I see we have another person who would like to provide testimony. That would be Natasha Sullivan. Natasha, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
I want thanks for allowing this hearing and hearing what we have to say. And I'm not quite sure if this is the right forum, but one of my concerns is the changes or the process that's going to happen with the school nurses reporting exemptions and how those exemptions are going to be basically filed with the state and what information will be there. How are they protected with privacy? What can the nurses see? What can the state see? I think it's really not made very clear in the rules at all what kind of information is being shared with the state and what can be accessed by whom. And I think that when you are giving your child's medical information to the school, parents should have the right to know exactly who can access that information and exactly what information is being allowed to be shared. And that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Natasha. Next up, we have Hannah Weber.
Hi,
Hello,
can you hear
Hannah?
me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Hannah Weber, and I am currently an elementary teacher and a parent of a second grader and a little boy who's headed into pre-K. And I strongly feel that COVID vaccine, flu vaccine, those should be decisions made by the parent. We know what's best for our children, and I feel that as some have stated before, that the government is taking more and more control over our rights as parents. And quite honestly, my husband and I have had multiple conversations between ourselves and with a lot of our friends that we will pull our kids from school, and I'll quit my job before I let that decision be made by other people and then forced on us. We need a lot more time. This is way too new, and I feel that we need years of research. I've read many stories that are scary, and especially for young kids who this is not impacting. And it's, I think it's very important that we keep our rights as parents to make those decisions and do what's best for our kids and our families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Okay, we still have time and there's still availability for public comment. If people would like to comment, please send me a direct message to Andy Hardy. Thank you. Susan Sleeper, I notice you have your hand up. Are you requesting to provide testimony? Trying to ask her to unmute. Susan, I'm sending you an invitation to unmute your mic. If you want to, there you go. Are you looking to provide public testimony, Susan?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm not very good on my phone.
Okay, no worries.
I am a grandmother. I have 5 grandchildren, 3 of which are in school. And it's heartbreaking to see what's happening, that my grandchildren would be forced to take vaccines in order to stay in school. 2 of them have experienced a lot of depression from this isolation and being masked and away from their school friends. And now to approach this season of school, not being able to attend because their parents have a right, a responsibility over their own children to deny the vaccine. And as a grandmother, and I'm sure there are many other grandparents out there who totally agree with me that it's heartbreaking to see this happen to my grandchildren. Where back in the past, if we didn't want our children to participate, we'd just send a note into school signed by my parents saying, I don't want my child to participate. But this forced vaccine and governmental control is gone too far. And so I totally hope that more grandparents speak out and more people get involved because the trials of this vaccine have shown that it is very harmful to children. Children have experienced adverse effects as well as some deaths. And those reports aren't getting out there. They're not being publicized. So I thank you that you will take in consideration these young mothers and teachers and psychologists that have given their testimonies are amazing. They have good knowledge and they understand their right, their constitutional right as well for themselves and their families. So I thank you for listening, and I do hope that this is corrected, that our children can return to school as they were, unmasked, without being forced for a vaccine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment, Susan. Up next, we have Nunya Benzi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So the list of ingredients on the vaccine is very troubling, and the possible side effects include death. I don't know that any of our parents are being made aware of that when they're submitting to these vaccines. And I don't understand, we have a 99% chance of survivability. What is the threshold for needing a vaccine? Is it more than 99% we need a vaccine? It makes no sense at all. I think that you should take into consideration the survivability rate, not only for adults, but for children as well, before instituting this. And I would urge you to look up the ingredients that are in this vaccine. It is troubling and frightening.
Does that conclude your comments, Nunya?
It does. It does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we do not have any other commenters at the moment. Sue, are you looking to provide public testimony?
I am.
Okay. Before you start, I would just like to remind people to just please send me a chat directly. It's okay if you can't, if you raise your hand is fine, but it really does work better if you could send me a chat beforehand. Sue, you're good to go.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say I'm not against vaccinations, but I think it should be a choice. I think the parents should choose and that they know what's best for their kids. I think it's a disgrace that this is where we're at as a country and as a community. Last year, my husband and I chose to pull our child out of public school, and we decided to homeschool with a group of other homeschoolers because we saw where things were going and we were afraid for our child. We don't, as I said, we're not against vaccinations, but we're certainly against this brand new vaccination that we don't know a whole lot about. I pray that this will never be required for our kids. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have room for more. If people would like to comment, please send me a direct chat. Thank you. Hello, Cindy. I noticed you have a question.
I do. I just want to clarify with what my understanding is what you've said is what the whole purpose of this is that the law has been passed already, like you've already passed this law, and this would be, which would mandate that all students in Maine schools would need to be vaccinated to be in school. But this right here, what we're doing is you have to implement the law, you have to have public hearing. So right now we're in the public hearing process before you pass the law, which is going to be next month. Is that correct?
Tara, feel free to jump in, but if I can start with the purpose of this is just for the rulemaking. So the law had been changed already and is already in effect or will take effect come September 1. So this rule only implements those changes. So it's not as though that we can go against the law at this point. That would have to be legislated by submitting changes to the actual statute, which would happen during the next session of the legislature or as an emergency law change.
So what is this rule? Like I'm unclear. Well, like
The law also mandated, one thing is that the law mandated that we remove the references to philosophical and religious exemptions. So our rule had to be updated to align with the changes in the law.
Okay, so this is a public hearing for that.
For the proposed changes to the rule.
And then is there going to be some kind of vote, like that if, say, this public hearing and all these people speak, can this make a difference?
If you're asking for a difference in the law that removes the exemptions, no. That would have to be done through the legislature themselves.
So what are we doing? So what can this do? I'm just unclear.
Well, there has been some suggestions for other changes that would be within the scope of this rulemaking. For instance, a commenter was asking for clarification around the IEP language.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so there can be possibly modifications or changes, but the law is what the law is, and it's passed, and people speaking out now isn't going to change. It's just basically letting you know how they feel about the law, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think
Sarah,
it's just it's easy to, like, I think a lot of people assume that if you speak here, it might make a difference in the law. But basically this would just be, people speaking would be a suggestion to maybe amend the law, or you can't even amend it. What would it be?
And again, it's not within the scope of the rulemaking. So although the department has to respond to each comment, those comments that are asking for a change in law cannot happen through this forum. Okay.
So this would be possibly if someone was to update it and maybe add something to it, like the IEP and the doctor, those pieces.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this rule forum is more or less if somebody would like to propose a possible change, like an addition to the law.
Yes.
Okay.
The purpose to clarify the existing law is
okay.
the rulemaking.
All right. That's what I wasn't quite clear, because I was thinking, like you said, the law was going to happen anyway. So what are we doing? But that you made it clear for me. So thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Tara, did you have anything to add to my explanation, or anything else you want to share with the public regarding the rulemaking process?
No, I mean, you captured it well, Bridget. Basically, we will consider every single comment submitted, and we will respond to each one and explain why we're changing the rule in response to that comment, or we're not making a change, and the reason why we're not making the change. So you'll see that explanation in the summary of comments and responses that we file with the Secretary of State's office, and that will be available to the public to read once it gets published for adoption. So yeah, that's really all I need to add, I think. But please, ask any more questions about the process, and we'd be happy to answer it.
Okay, I have Garen Jewett, who is interested in providing testimony. Garen? Garen, I'm trying to unmute your microphone. I'm sending you a message. Okay, Garen's trying to unmute himself. He keeps hitting unmute. Okay. I'll send one more message, and we'll see what happens. Okay, still trying. All right, I'm going to send another message. I'm going to ask to unmute, and oh, darn, doesn't seem to. Tara, is there any way that you can unmute Garen Jewett's microphone?
I tried the same thing you did, Andy.
Oh.
I sent a message, asked to unmute, and I was trying to unmute directly myself, but those are the only options I am aware of.
Garen, are you getting any of these messages from us that are asking you to unmute? Are you getting any pop-up messages or anything? Okay, Garen's going to change the settings on his phone. Just let us know when you're ready and we can send you another prompt to unmute. And in the meantime, if there's anybody else who wants to provide testimony, just let me know. So once again, while Garen is trying to work out some of the technical issues on his side, if anyone would like to provide public testimony, please send me a direct message. Okay, Garen is back. He ended up having to switch. Okay, are you ready?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So I was a little late to the beginning of the meeting, so I just want to clarify that this is going over the law change that the state of Maine voted on a while back to implement required vaccinations, stating no more exemptions are going to be allowed aside from the IEP. That's correct?
Yes, that in summary, yes.
Okay. So is that excluding that there's, or including, not sure. Are we like here to talk about the fact that later on down the line, new vaccinations such as flu and COVID could be added, or would that also be something we would have to vote on as a state of Maine?
That would have to be an entirely separate rulemaking. And I'm not quite sure, Terry, you could correct me, but I believe if we are changing any of the list of the immunizations, that would require a major substantive rulemaking.
Correct. And a major substantive rulemaking means that it would have to go through the legislature, and there'd be a legislative session and a committee hearing, a public hearing there where the public could attend and make their comments, in addition to our rulemaking public hearings. So that would be a totally separate process. This one is just to follow what the law agencies to do, which is to implement rules in response to the new law, which is to remove provisions about medical exemptions, remove any reference to philosophical or religious exemptions. And I believe that's it. There's still some other exemptions. As we mentioned, the IEP is still in place. And there's a written assurance exemption as well. Those did not change.
Okay, just some of the commenters were leaving me a little confused, thinking that COVID and flu were also some of the requirements for this following school year. And
Yes.
as of now, it's just everything that was on the Maine CDC website, you know, the varicella, the measles, mumps, rubella, et cetera, not COVID, not flu. Those are not on that list for this school year as of now.
Correct. And I did make a mention of that in the summary, and I understand that you're a little bit late, but we did specifically say that no changes are being made to the list.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm because some of the commenters was leaving me a little confused thinking that it had been added, but as of today and as of right now, it's just everything on that Maine CDC website. Nothing's changing as far as the shots are required. We're just here to talk about the fact that there's no longer going to be all those exemptions that you just listed.
Correct. There are a few other changes that we had advertised as well, but the majority of the weighted changes is just that it removes those exemptions.
Okay. And if added vaccinations were going to be added, then the state of Maine, there would be a big to do about it, and we would all know and be able to vote on that.
Yes, you'd be afforded a legislative process that would include voting.
Okay. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you.
We still have availability for people to provide public comment.
Hi there. I have a question. If you could clarify it for me. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jordan.
I'm sorry, can I just ask you to state your name?
Yep. Hi, my name is Jordan Spencer. I'm seeing that additionally, these proposed rules change include new and revised definitions as an vaccine schedule for pre-kindergarten students. Could you talk to me a little bit more about that? Has that schedule already been written? Are there specific vaccines that are on that list already, or is that a part of what today's public hearing is all about?
Jordan, we can take your comment as far as for asking for clarification around that, but we don't want to go too far into the actual specifics of the changes in this forum. You are correct that the definitions have changed, and it does clarify about the pre-K students. And then I would have to just refer you back to the changes that were proposed in the actual rule text, and also that was specified in the notice of the rulemaking.
I see. So there's a document that has this all spelled out for me. Is that what you're saying?
There's a notice of the rulemaking that provides just a summary overview, and then the specific changes are made to the rule document that we posted on our website, and you'll see it's what we call a strikeout version. You'll see what text has been proposed to be removed and what new text by underlining of what the changes are for removing or adding language.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So we're about 10 minutes past 10 o'clock, and we have no people in the waiting room, so everyone has been admitted, and we will give a few more minutes in case anyone is wanting to make their testimony heard today, they can register with Andy, but we'll give a few more minutes to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. Again, you can also submit written comments up until August 5th.
Okay, we do have somebody who requested to provide comment. Annie Sarbanis.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Sorry, I logged on earlier and I got very confused with all of the COVID vaccine talk. So I'm glad that I am in the correct public hearing. I am here neither for or against the proposed rule changes. I did want to echo some of the need for clarification around the remote charter schools, distance learning, that the very first speaker did speak about. And then also I know that someone else had mentioned as well an area of concern around the IEPs when a child either qualifies out of the IEP, are they then grandfathered underneath, let's say a child transfers from an IEP to a 504 plan because they have acquired enough skills that they no longer qualify for the IEP. Are they still protected underneath the IEP exemption? And I believe that's all. That's everything else that I wanted to say. I do appreciate a lot of the language and clarification. I want to thank this committee for the work that they're putting into putting language to these rule changes. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We still have room. If people want to comment, please send me a direct message.
So is now 10:15. This is our final request for anyone who's providing testimony to please register. I'm going to give one more minute before we conclude today's hearing. And again, you can be providing written comments up until August 5th. Okay. Having everyone had the opportunity to speak today, we will be concluding our public hearing. Our final slide will include the information for for submitting written comments, and also a reminder of the comment deadline, August 5th, 2021, 5 p.m. Thank you for joining today.
Recording stopped.